There was a road in ancient Athens that led towards the nearby city of Eleusis, the site where the most sacred mysteries in the Greek world took place. It was called the Sacred Way, Ieraudos, and parts of it, half devoured by moss, are still visible around Athens today. Every year, walking around this road, Athenians reached Eleusis in a type of pilgrimage, ready to be initiated in its mysteries, the great mysteries of Eleusis. What actually happened during those rituals has remained a secret. Curiously, one should add, as it was a secret that was shared by hundreds of thousands across Greece. But central to the ritual process was the drinking of a potion, kykeon, a word that simply means mix or cocktail perhaps, but its actual recipe was never revealed. And yet, during Europe's darkest hour, a Swiss chemist experimenting with the medicinal properties of ergot, a fungus that infects wheat crops, stumbled upon a compound that would change the course of history. His name was Albert Hofmann, and the substance he accidentally discovered was lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD for short. Reflecting on the process that led to its discovery, years after experiencing its miraculous effects firsthand, Hofmann realized two important things. One, that ergot, from which LSD was first derived, was found in abundance throughout the fields surrounding Eleusis, and that wheat, from which the fungus was taken, appeared to have been so sacred to the mysteries that it actually functioned as their main symbol. All of a sudden, the effects of kykeon began to sound all too familiar. The Greeks believed that the mysteries of Eleusis were founded by Demeter, goddess of agriculture and the fruits of the cultivated fields. To this day, edible grain are still called cereal, taking after Ceres, the name that she took when her cults moved to Rome. The story that told of the mysteries' founding, and might even have served as their main theme, was Demeter's quest for her daughter Persephone after she was kidnapped by Hades, god of the underworld and king of the dead. There, we are told how Persephone was gathering flowers on lush meadows when suddenly she took notice of a flower, a beautiful narcissus. But as she reached for it, the earth suddenly split, and through the dark chasm, riding on his golden chariot, out came Hades, king of the underworld, brother of Zeus, who grabbed Persephone by the arm and dragged her down to his netherworld kingdom. The girl cried to the heavens, but Zeus did not intervene, as it was he who had orchestrated her abduction as a gift to his brother. Demeter, hearing the cries of her daughter, rushed to her aid, but arrived too late. Desperately, she looked for her, but no one seemed to know where Persephone was. No one apart from Helios, the sun, who witnessed the events unfolding under his golden course, and told Demeter what had happened. Filled with rage against Zeus, Demeter left the palace of Olympus and began walking the earth, transformed into an old mortal woman, withdrawing her powers so that throughout Greece crops began to fail and mankind began to perish. Alone she roamed, struck with grief, until she reached Eleusis. We are told that when Demeter reached Eleusis, she bestowed mankind with two gifts. First, the grain, through which our race passed from animal to man. Second, the knowledge of the sacred mysteries, which took away our fear of dying. But what exactly happened during those mysteries? A Greek orator hinted towards the idea that the mysteries included visual hallucinations, and even proposed ergot, the same fungi used by Albert Hofmann, as the potential reason. His reference didn't seem to interest academics very much, but was caught by an American banker-turned-adventurer, Gordon Wasson, the man who introduced the West to psilocybin mushrooms, the so-called magic mushrooms, during the mid-50s. Wasson claimed that among the Greeks, mushrooms were known as vromatheon, food of the gods, but gave no reference to back his claim. Throughout his writings, Wasson seems to be constantly getting ahead of himself, driven by a passion of discovery and fueled by the incredible experiences he had with the Mexican witch doctor Maria Sabina, during which he lived an eternity in a single night and saw infinity in a grain of sand. His seminal paper, The Road to Eleusis, closes inconclusively, with nothing but a theory in search of more evidence. But Wasson was in no short supply of friends, and among them was no other than Albert Hofmann, the man to first synthesize LSD from lysergic acid, which he synthesized from ergot, the fungus that Wasson initially thought was behind the mysteries. Ergot is a parasite that infects barley and rye, and Hofmann observed that wherever it was found, the fungus was surrounded by legends, while infected plants were often called mad or drunken, hinting to potential psychoactive properties. Hofmann, who by that time had become a full psychedelics advocate, processed ergot with what he thought were the means that ancient Greeks had available at the time. To his surprise, after digesting the brew, Hofmann discovered that in high enough doses, ergot can indeed cause mild hallucinations, writing back to Wasson triumphantly that the answer is yes. Early man in ancient Greece could have arrived at a hallucinogen from ergot. But here lies a problem. The Greeks were by no means stranger to the concept of simply having fun. And if they had indeed produced an LSD analog, it's hard to believe they would have restricted its use to the Eleusinian Mysteries that were only to be had once in a lifetime. Unsurprisingly, another scholar by the name of Karl Ruck joined the discussion to suggest something radical, that what the Greeks called wine might not be the same beverage that we know today. Ruck began with a well-established fact that the Greeks always diluted their wine with water, and that not doing so was considered barbaric, with warnings about possible madness or even death. According to Ruck, however, the Greeks did not possess the technology needed to distill wine properly, and even lacked a word for alcohol, suggesting they had never been able to isolate it. Greek wine then could not have exceeded a degree of 14% alcohol, which they would always and without fail dilute with at least 3 parts of water. So how could what would essentially be classified as a soft drink today induce the divine ecstasies of its patron saint, Dionysus? Ruck's answer was that Greek wine included much more than squashed grapes, and noticed how the female devotees of Dionysus, the Bacchae, would wander the mountainsides during the winter months in search of a certain vine that grew suddenly at the fall of thunder. They would walk holding a thyrsus or wand with a pine cone placed on its head, the pine cone having long associations with the pineal gland, considered by many ancient people to be the seat of human consciousness. Ruck concludes that these devotees, these Bacchae, were initiated into the powers of the netherworld through the purple dark of the grain's sibling that Dr. Hofmann has made available to our generation. The grain's sibling, of course, was lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD. So, how about we finally try to give an answer to our question? Did the Greeks trip on LSD? Well, it's an enticing idea, and it seems to be supported by a few brilliant people, including the inventor of LSD himself. But it would be very dishonest for us to say that what we presented amounts to a proof. But regardless of the how, the Greeks must have tripped. The visions they saw during the Great Mysteries included all elements of modern chemically induced trip, holy terror, divine awe, sublime visions, while the participants came out changed for life. But for all the tripping, we have to end on a sad note, one that provides a necessary link to the present. In our days, the city of Eleusis, the most sacred of sacred sites, has been drowned in concrete, iron and gas, as Greece's oil refineries were built there. The Greek poet Nikos Gatsos dedicated one of his poems to Eleusis as it stands today, in sad contrast to how it once stood. He named it Persephone's Nightmare.